this is Michael Jahnz from Richrath Project 313.
Radio, 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 radio. Heard it on the radio.
And you're listening to Play That Rock and Roll.
Heard it on the radio. The song's about you and me. Heard it on the radio. Our life is just a mystery to me. Hey baby, and you can check out anytime you want. Just call me Joe, and I can play that rock and roll for you.
This is not a test, this is Play That Rock and Roll. I'm your host, Joseph K., and like the song at the start says, just call me Joe. Today, my guest is Michael Jahnz. Michael is the frontman, vocalist, and founder of Richrath Project 313, which is a band dedicated to celebrating the memory and music of original guitar player for REO Speedwagon, Gary Richrath. Gary Richrath was a founding member of REO Speedwagon, and he played on all of their biggest hits. And he wrote a number of them as well. Gary left REO in 1989, and shortly after that, he started his own solo band, just called Richrath. And Michael, my guest today, was the vocalist for that group. Michael wrote several songs with Gary, and they put out an album called Only the Strong Survive in 1992. Sadly, Gary passed away in 2015. But in 2019, Michael Jahnz put together a band called the Richrath Project 313, and they have been touring ever since. And they even put out a new album last year. When they tour, they play mostly REO Speedwagon music from REO's golden years, as those are the songs Gary is most famous for. But they do songs from Gary's solo career and also their own original music as well. I saw Richrath Project 313 just recently at the Greendale Village Days, which takes place near where I live. I thought they were fantastic, and I think this is a really cool project. So after the show, I got a chance to talk to Michael, and I invited him on the show to talk not just about the new album they put out, but also his history with Gary going back to the late 80s. This band is a celebration of a very underrated and underappreciated figure in classic rock. And that's why I think they are a band that classic rock fans should definitely be more aware of. Gary Richrath was an awesome guitar player, and the music that Michael and his band now play totally lives up to that standard. Gary Richrath is one of those great classic guitar players from the late 70s and early 80s. And since he's no longer with us, it is Michael who is keeping his music alive today. And I think that's important for classic rock fans, so that's what we're talking about today. So in this interview, we talk about how Michael met and started working with Gary Richrath, their 1992 album, Only the Strong Survive, Gary's songwriting process, the band's new album, LA Is Mine, and how the band tackles the modern challenges that comes with touring and promoting a new record. Again, the new album is called LA Is Mine. You can get physical copies at Walmart and Amazon, and you can stream it on Spotify. Or you can do what I did and buy it from the merch table at one of their concerts. They'll be happy to sign it for you after the show. If you want to learn more about this band, you can check out their website, project313rocks.com. They have their tour dates there, and they do still have some upcoming days in 2022. And you can also find them on Facebook and Twitter at Project313Rocks. So without further ado, here's my conversation with founder, vocalist, and frontman of Richrath Project 313, Michael Jahnz.
I heard it was hard, I heard it was long. Looking back the line, only the strong survive.
So, I just saw you and your band play Greendale Village Days, which was a really fun show. Great night out. How did you enjoy that evening?
I loved it. It was my hometown. I grew up there, and like I kind of mentioned on stage a couple of times, I mean, it's really wonderful to be able to play your hometown like that and have such a great response, because I mean, there were thousands of people there, and I actually, was into music my whole life, And I did my 8th grade graduation dance there. That was my first actual paid show. So I think we made like $200 or something like that, and we did our 8th grade graduation dance. So right around the corner in the middle school there. So it was kind of cool, you know.
Oh, that's awesome.
So come back here, and we had the opportunity to play before COVID, and we had a similar response like that. And then we did the 82 class reunion, which was what we did the other night, and that was by far even better. It was more fun and much tighter as a band. We've been doing a lot of playing more. So after this last album, we've been doing a lot. So we had a great time. It was wonderful.
Okay, so let's get started with for those who aren't familiar with yourself and your band. You're the founder and frontman and lead vocalist for Richrath Project 313. And for those who don't know, can you tell us what your band is all about and what sort of music you play?
Well, what it's all about is I was in 1988, the end of 88, early 89. I was fortunate enough to live in a town in California called Thousand Oaks, which was it's like my second home. And I have opportunity to meet Gary Richrath, and Gary Richrath is one of the founding members of REO Speedwagon, the guitarist, and everybody that listens to REO Speedwagon right away they think it's Gary, because Gary is the sound of REO. Well, through those time periods, Gary bought a ranch in Newbury Park, which is like in Milwaukee, it would be considered like Greendale and Greenfield. That's like Thousand Oaks and Newbury Park. They're right together like that. And my drummer actually ran into Gary at a convenience store, and he noticed him right away. Being from the Midwest, we grew up with REO. So, and Gary said, "Hey, you look like you're in a band," because he had long hair and stuff. He's like, "Yeah, I play drums." And he goes, "Well, I live in Newbury Park. You live around here?" And he said, "Yeah, I live in Thousand Oaks." He goes, "Let's jam." And this is like Gary Richrath, and so he came home. And he's like, "Guys, he goes, I got this opportunity. Gary Richrath's going to come jam with us." And everybody said, "Yeah, right. Come on, that's not going to happen." And being from Wisconsin, we're Packer fans, big time Packer fans. So every Sunday we had people that, would invite us to their houses, because it was through the 80s when the Packers were very not good. Let's put it that way. They were bad. But we still were such diehard fans. We watched every single game we could. Because if you got a chance to see the team live, you want to see them. And so we were doing a Sunday afternoon watching the game, and we get a knock on the door, and it's one of our roadies saying, "Gary Richrath's at our house right now." And I'm like, "Come on, he is not." And they dragged me from a Packer game, which never happens. And he was, sure enough, there he was in our studio in Thousand Oaks. So he started jamming with us, and obviously we knew Riding the Storm Out, and we knew Taking on the Run. And he had me singing the songs. So he's like, "Wow, you got a really good voice." He goes, "Would you like to do some demos?" And I said, "Yeah." Well, he was putting together the new REO album at that time. And Kevin was doing like a solo thing, and Gary was working with another singer called Tom DeLuca, who helped him writing some songs, and they were doing some demos. So he asked me if I wanted to sing on them. And one thing led to another, and I was singing on his demos, and I said, "What the heck? This is great." And then he did the split where Kevin took the band and Gary did a solo thing, and I was Gary's solo frontman, and we started doing all REO Speedwagons and new songs that I helped Gary write. And that was totally 1989, 1990. And we released the Only the Strong Survive album in 1992, I think it was. So. And it was a tour, nonstop tour. I mean, we toured everywhere through North America. So it started out with doing just Gary songs of REO and then originals. And then we started slowly doing some of the combo songs that he did with Kevin. And we took a few breaks through the time period. And then, like I said, the album came out. It did really well in certain areas. Didn't do so well all over the place. The record company, there it is.
Yep.
It's a great album. It's a great album. We did a lot of stuff that REO did in the 70s there, because Gary basically produced it with Neil Norman from Crescendo. And it was a wonderful experience. I mean, we had the keyboard player from Frank Zappa do keyboards for us. All the original demos that we did on that original album was done with some of the REO guys, and then me doing vocals. And then, like I said, it did well, but then Gary still had some issues going on. And, I think Gary had enough depression going on that he just couldn't keep it going as like we wanted to go. We were kids, and he was going through a lot of the stuff that the REO thing was. He was kind of not so happy with the way things turned out, because it got worse toward the middle of the 90s and then later on, because he kept on having the repercussions of what happened to him in REO. And it was nonstop talking about what happened with Kevin and Gary, and that's all anybody ever asked about. And he wanted to push on his new band more than anything, and the record company was not a big record company. It was an independent. They weren't going to put the support that CBS and Epic did for REO. And we just had to keep on, touring and touring. And, he was older. We were young kids, but, it takes a toll on everybody. And we were playing, 6, 7, sometimes we'd play 2 shows in a week, like 8 nights a week, we do 2 shows in one day. So it got the band super tight. I mean, we played and played and played, and we were really a tight band. And it finally got to the point where we had to kind of like take a break. And I took a break a couple times because it was too hard on the band, because Gary was having some issues, just nonstop playing it from bars to, theaters to festivals to bars, back and forth. And that's what really kind of happened. And, the guy's the nicest guy in the world. He's definitely, I consider him like a brother to me. He taught me so much, but it was a tough life. It was tough for us to be able to deal with it, because the end result was not what we wanted it to be, So, again, it's like you gotta make some money in all aspects of it, from writers to touring to everything else. And we never really got that. We never got over that big hump. And that's kind of like where that went. But that's where I am now. And I'm kind of, I got a brand new album out, and from that, all the demos that Gary and I worked with through the years, I still had, and I still have more. And we kind of, now that there's a digital age that we're in, we took some of the demos and put them on Pro Tools. Okay. And Gary's guitar and his background vocals, we just put them on Pro Tools, and then my new band played with Gary. We put that together. We started, I would say we started that 2 years ago out in LA. So we went out in LA and did all the basic tracks out in LA. And then Crescendo called me up and said, since Gary passed away, because Gary passed away in 2015, they wanted to try to, capitalize on that. I wasn't sure. I didn't want to do it right away, but then I thought, I want to give him his justice that, he deserves. And he didn't really get a lot of, people don't really rate him as one of the best guitarists or songwriters. And I think he is. I mean, like I said, you can pick up an REO Speedwagon album and not know that Gary Richrath played on that. Because right now they don't write anything new. They don't have anything, I was in the car today, like I was telling you, I was out and about. I heard Taking on the Run. I heard Riding the Storm Out just on the radio, classic radio. And it's like, it's every day. It's like constant, and you can hear that guitar just chirping and screaming. And that's Gary,
Absolutely. And REO is a favorite band of mine. And there is no doubt that their output took a steep decline starting in 1990. And they never, got back to, where they were when they had Gary. And I think that's why they don't make music anymore. Interesting that you say that Gary was having a hard time in the aftermath of the whole Fallout thing, because I recall watching VH1 Behind the Music, about REO. And that's all that episode talked about was the conflicts. And you can tell in the interview he's getting sick of those questions. It's sad that had to hang over his whole, solo career.
Yeah, and it is sad because, like I said, but you can tell Gary was a very passionate individual. He believed in his music, and that's one thing he taught me. He always said, you don't write a song to be a hit. You write a song from your feelings, your deepest feelings, and you write songs, whether it be a love song or a party song, like on the Only the Strong Survive, he wrote, "If the night don't get you, the morning will," because that's what it's all about, And but then you have your love songs, and it's like he wrote from his heart, and I fell in that same trap, and I'm not the greatest guitarist in the world, nowhere near anything like he could do, but I know the chord progressions that he taught me and how to bring melodies out of that, and so I took a lot of learning skills that he taught me, and especially with my vocals. The man he had a really good voice when he was younger, and later on he got the mic taken away from him by a certain individual, but I captured a lot of that stuff that I had, because he had a unique voice that was he pushed me to the limits. That's where 313 came from. If you're going to ask the question, because 313 was 313 in the morning, because he would push me and push me and push me and push me. And, everything to him was, when he was producing me in the studio, it was like those meters, he'd always want me to double my voice, and those always had to be, perfect. And it was like, I would pin those needles every time, and I knew I was doing it, and everybody else in the control room would say, "You're doing it right." And he goes, and he would just joke with me, because he's like, he was getting back somebody else for giving him such a hard time. So I was the poster boy. I was getting beat up for that, But you know what? It made my voice stronger. And
absolutely.
And I appreciate that. And the story behind it's great, So like I said, I had a lot of fun. It was the funnest time of my life with him. And just the experiences. But like I said, when you get done right down to it, I learned so much from him, and I brought all that to the new album. And like a lot of people can say, even the songs that I wrote sound a lot like an REO Speedwagon earlier years or whatever, but the vocal abilities, we have so much more vocals going on,
Yeah.
And fortunately, on These Nights and LA Is Mine and Help Me Save Me From Myself were songs that Gary did background vocals on in my studio, and we got them captured in there. So I blended them with mine, but it's like, you can still hear them, and it's like, if you can pinpoint them all, you can, if you're really listening hard. But there was a post today of we're moving in on the seventh year anniversary of Gary's passing. Yeah. And Summer Love is, we did that. If you heard that the other night, not many, they never do Summer Love, And we do Summer Love. It's regularly in our set, and one of my favorite songs, to do. And when we first started doing it, we just did it acoustically, and he sang the lead and I sang the high part in the back. Somebody isolated it where it was just Gary's vocals, which is really cool. It was on Facebook today. If you check it out, it's really cool. But that was one of the things I try to do. I try to capture every aspect of Gary being Gary. And LA Is Mine does his guitar playing, it was extraordinary. And then These Nights is more of a rocking song that he always had that rocker in him. And then Help Me Save Me From Myself is self-explanatory. It's basically about him. It's like Son of a Poor Man,
Yeah.
It's like Help Me Save Me From Myself was his demons he couldn't get out. There was nobody that could help him but himself, Right. And that's kind of what that song is all about. So, I was so honored to be able to finish that up. And so the record company, when they came to me, they asked me to do that. I said, well, let's try it. So my idea was, I came up with the idea of trying to redo his tracks instead of just re-recording the songs. And it turned out better than anybody ever expected, So it's actually Gary on there, so.
That's terrific. I think that was, I spoke to you after the Village Days show, and you were telling me about how, through studio magic, that Gary's voice and guitar and, other tracks are present on this new album. And I think that's, so cool that, that technology exists, that you're able to do stuff like that. I imagine it's, more meaningful on a personal level as well. But one thing go ahead.
It really was personal, because when I came up with the idea, the record company kind of thought that was crazy. But then I thought of, well, you heard of the Nat King Cole and his daughter, Natalie Cole, I think. They did that, and that's where I got the idea from. And then I thought, well, if they did that, I should be able to do something now, because that was years ago. And it was like, and I figured there's got to be some way of doing it. And I finally found some guy that I was friends with who figured it out, and he did it. And I shouldn't say figured out. I'm sure there's other people that have done it, but I'm just saying it was hard to do, because the song was, it was recorded in a demo, and then it was like we had to literally play along with it. And it was like, it was difficult, but it turned out so cool. And everybody was so honored to actually play with Gary in my new band that it was like he was in the studio. You know, it was like he was right there, you know, and it was like you could feel it.
That is very cool. And you're right, you're not the first to do it. I know that one of Bruce Springsteen's more recent records features sax recordings from the big man Clarence Clements. And, you know, he talked about how emotional and how important that is for him, you know, and also Clarence's family. I mean, it's a really good use of material that would otherwise just be lost to time.
Sure. That was, there was a lot of emotions with this whole thing. Like, you know, I mean, I moved out to LA in '85, and my first experience with Gary, believe it or not, was I ran into him. I went to Greendale High School, like I told you, that's where I did the play, but I went to my junior prom, and we went down to the Hyatt Regency, and they were doing their High Infidelity tour in 1981, I think it was, 1980, I think it was 19. But I actually met him that night in my tuxedo, and he was at the Hyatt Regency, and that's where we were having dinner at there, you know, and it was like I actually met him, and you know, he swears he remembers it all those years later, but I mean, it wasn't that long. But it was like from 1981 to 1988, 89 is when I finally met him, you know, because I mean, it was really, you know, he was on the top floor and I was down in the bottom, and we kept on trying to get up there. And then there was security that wouldn't let us up to the top. Right. And he let us up there. So it was kind of cool. And, you know, like I said, that was one of the experiences I had. And then it was just like always so magical. And then when I moved out to LA in '85, and the last person I ever thought I would be working with was Gary Richrath, you know. We did a Badfinger tour before we went out to LA, and we were getting some help from Atlantic Records because Tony Kaye was the keyboard player from Yes, and he was kind of on our side, and he was with Badfinger when we toured. So I thought, well, I was going to probably be working with somebody like that more than anybody. Then all of a sudden Gary popped up, you know, and it was just like, wow, what a weird experience that was, you know. And it was really cool. And like I said, then there was so many coincidences that happened when me and him became very good friends. We talked about stuff, and it was just, you know, where he grew up and how I grew up and everything else. It was kind of, we had a good connection, you know, definitely a deep connection. So
yeah, and that's so funny. I want to go back real quick about the whole Packer thing. So you were watching the Packers during the Don Makowski Magic Man years.
Yeah, definitely, yes.
Was I can't imagine Gary was also a Packer fan. Was he a Bears fan?
Gary was not a Packer fan. He's from you know, Peoria, Illinois, but he wasn't even really a Chicago Bear fan, even though he was. But he was really into the Lakers. I mean, that was his team. He loved the Lakers, you know. Yeah, and then I start, you know, then when you're out in LA, you become a Lakers fan. You just do.
Oh, sure.
And you know, every time the Bucks played them, they were getting beat by the Lakers, you know, eventually.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, it was one of those things where, you know, when you're from Wisconsin, you support your teams. So, but the Packers just run so deep in my family and stuff. You know, I mean, I was fortunate enough. My father had a store up in Green Bay when I was very little. So he was, you know, he always had tickets. You know, so I had Vincent Barty paraphernalia, and, you know, Bart Starr and all that stuff that I had as a kid growing up. So that was cool. But I'm just saying, it was very interesting through the years. You know, I never lost that. And then he would just give me so much, you know what, because I like the Packers, because he hated the Packers, you know. And then every time he started playing, then he actually started, like, I remember one time we were in Denver, and we were sitting in a hotel and watching them play the Denver Broncos, you know. And we were beating the Denver Broncos, and he's like, you know, I think that was right, probably when Favre was starting in the 90s, and, you know. Okay. And then it was like, he's like, I don't get it. These guys, they're just doing too good. And then he started becoming a Packer fan, you know, and he called me the cheesehead, you know. He's like, the cheesehead. But, you know, all the guys were from the Midwest. So, I mean, we were all cheeseheads, basically, you know. So, yeah, and it was funny. It was a fun time, though. And sports were always the main focus off the stage. You know, we were always in sports, you know. So anytime, you know, like my drummer, which, you know, Tracy was one of my best friends when we moved out for it. He had friends that played hockey. So we did a show up in Edmonton when Wayne Gretzky, he went to the Kings, LA Kings. So he went and bought the Edmonton Oilers, Wayne Gretzky, and then the LA Kings, and he went and had a seamstress sew them together. He cut them right down. It was really cool. It was really cool. So he went up on stage and played that up in Edmonton, and everybody went crazy over that, because it's like, because no one ever thought he was going to do something like that. That's another thing. But
that's awesome.
Always been into sports like that. Sports was kind of our thing. But the music, back to the music thing. We did what the best we could with this album, and it was a long shot that it was going to turn out the way it did. And then we had some issues with the record company because of COVID, because they wanted to shut down basically everything because of COVID. And then Dark Star came in and said, we'll take the whole thing. So they took over the whole thing and they released it, and it's been doing great. I mean, we've been doing so great on the first 2 singles that we put out. Got Alice Cooper involved with the Nights with Alice Cooper, and the second single that we put out, Heard It on the Radio, was it's like in 250 different stations around the world. So I mean, it's doing really well. And I don't know what we're up to. I think we're up to like 170,000 views on YouTube with the video. The video was another thing too. I mean, talking about old stomping grounds, when I moved out to LA, we were putting signs up on the telephone poles and stuff like that. You can come see our band. They play at Gazzari's or the Roxy or all the local places, and then we were shooting a video down there with Entertainment Tonight people. So it was kind of cool. It was cool. They shot a really nice video, and that video turned out, it was like coming in full circle with me in LA, because it was like that. I loved it.
Yeah, that's the Heard It on the Radio video.
Yeah, Heard It on the Radio.
And that's my favorite song off the new record.
Yeah, that was one that I did years and years ago, and I never finished it. And Gary always liked it, and we always had it sitting there, on demo form. And Dennis Pockets, my new guitarist, he came up with this incredible riff, and I'm like, I know where we can put that song. It'll fit perfect. And we started working on it, and sure enough, Heard It on the Radio. We weren't even going to put that song on the album. We did it like a week before the album. So we didn't even, and we just put it together. We were so excited. It was the funnest song probably. And we just went in there and we actually finished it in the studio and we put it out. So it was cool, because that's another one of those things that happened like that,
Well, it's another in the great tradition of rock songs that are about the radio, which is sort of a lost art. I always think of do you remember Rock and Roll Radio by the Ramones? Crank That Radio by Stan Bush, Turn Up the Radio, Autograph. There's so many great tracks, and now this is just another one in that great tradition. I wonder about the inspiration about that song. Like, when I don't know if you would remember this, but like when you first started putting those lyrics together, was there a specific song or maybe a band or maybe even just a genre of music that like you heard on the radio and that made you want to write a song about it?
Well, actually, the concept was when I was probably a teenager, and it probably was when I started thinking about, because back in those days everybody listened to the radio, and I said, wouldn't it be cool? You never hear a song about Heard It on the Radio, like I heard that on the radio. Wouldn't that be a cool song to write? And like you said, you're pointing out some songs, yes, but it was in my genre of music that I listened to. I never really heard anything like that at that time.
Yeah.
But I never finished it. So I never finished it. And I always had the title Heard It on the Radio. So I changed it through the years. And then I thought about, when you're with, your better half and you're driving in a car and you're just having a great time with your girl, and, you're cranking up the song to your favorite song, and, you're just having fun cruising around. Well, that's what's in the video. Like if you see our video, we're in a convertible down, Hollywood Boulevard, and and that's where I was having my most fun of my life. That's 1985 all the way through there. Like I said, that was my life, and I had so much fun doing it. And then I finally got to come full circle and actually do a video on it, plus have a song in there. It was great. It was really cool. I actually had to pinch myself there for a minute. I was like, this is really cool, because I always wanted this song, but I didn't know how it was going to get put out there, So I had a lot of forces working with it. Dennis was the new guy. plus Gary helped me in the years prior to it, but we just never finished it. And then I had the original title for it, and I thought, well, that'd be cool. And then the melodies got changed, and I had a little help here, changing around some lyrics that would fit better. And, like I said, the end result is a great song. So, again, it keeps going up. So we're happy about that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you found a way to use that original title, all these years later, because it's a really great hook, and it definitely harkens back to those kind of glory years of like 80s Sunset Strip, LA rock.
Right, exactly. I mean, and that's exactly what we did. We had a friend that has been very close to us, that he had all the sites picked out. And he figured all the places to put them out there, and he got them all together, and we went out there, and it was boom, 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 and we had it all done. And it was cool. Like, we went up to the observatory with the Hollywood sign and Chinese theater and the Whiskey a Go-Go, and all those places, and we just were walking down the street, out of the car, in the car, driving around, and it was just like I said. Then we finally ended up in the hills up in Sunset. Off of Mulholland, overlooking the city at the end of the night when it got dark out. So it was cool. It was really cool.
Yeah. So we've talked a bit about, Gary's songwriting and guitar playing and his impact on these two records we've both been talking about. But I also want to highlight your songwriting. You got 5 writing credits on the Only the Strong Survive album and even more on the new record. Can you tell me about what your songwriting process back in the early 90s with Gary was like, and versus how your songwriting process works today? Well,
I'm more experienced now at doing it because I've had a lot of experiences just out on the road and stuff like that. But you kind of take all your influences and you put them together, And like I said, talking about the Gary and the Kevin thing, like with REO Speedwagon. Well, I happen to be a big fan of Kevin's too. I mean, I really like some of his songs that he wrote. I mean, if you were at the concert, you saw We Do Can't Fight This Feeling and Keep on Loving You. And I get everybody singing that song, and those songs. So it's kind of like that, it's giving credit to him too, because he wrote some great songs. Yeah. So, but I mean, again, so I would say I'm more of a ballad kind of guy. But see, I think Gary was too. He was a rocker, but he also knew how to get the girl, I mean, he definitely knew how to get the girl. So he knew how to write those songs that, would make everybody happy, from the rocking guys to the girls. So I mean, it was like one of those things. But so you pick up on that stuff, and the vocal thing that Gary had in his head was the coolest thing, because he was a fan of the Everly Brothers, definitely a fan of the Beatles, all those things like that. So I mean, and he used to make me sit and listen. I was never a Beatles fan, okay, honestly, and he made me sit there and listen to Beatles after Beatles after Beatles. And finally, I became a Beatles fan after listening to it so much, But one of my fondest memories, too, is what he gave me this album, Tumbleweed Connection by Elton John.
Oh, okay.
And it was from the early 70s. And he goes, I want you to listen to this and listen to his vocals. And it was like, I want you to learn the way he uses his voice. And so I did. And it's one of my favorite albums now. I listen to it all the time. And it's been 30 years now, but it's amazing. I mean, Burn Down the Mission and all those other songs that are on there. I just so many wonderful vocal techniques that he used on there. And it was just him, and the microphone. And there was not a lot of effects going on, it was just amazing. Some of the stuff you can do with your vocals, if you can have somebody to help you to learn how to do it, And Gary had it in his head. And, like I said, he could sing, but, he wanted me to be the singer, the front man. Just like he wanted Kevin and I'm sure all the other guys, Michael Murphy and, Kerry Luttrell and stuff like that. But I think I'm more in the concept of, I'm more of a Dennis DeYoung kind of singer. And I do more melodic kind of vocals like that than most of the other guys. And a lot of, we once in a while we'll throw in a stick song here and there just to have fun. And we usually do pretty well on them. So it's fun, it's a fun thing to do. I don't think Gary would be happy if I did that, but now I do. But yeah. said again, at one point in time, he wouldn't even play a Kevin song. So, so I mean, I'm doing a lot of stuff that he wouldn't appreciate. But like I said, I wasn't involved with that, and I just have to do what's honest to me, and I feel good about it. So, and I never regret my meeting with Gary. I had the best time of my life, and taught me so much, and I use it now. I mean, the stuff he's taught me is priceless.
Absolutely. Yeah, and for what it's worth, I do remember reading Kevin saying that, reading something that Kevin said about they had a chance to reconcile, so I'm sure whatever, he'd give your show a full blessing, based on how good you guys perform. One last question about the Only the Strong Survive. I'm going to put this album cover up. This was reissued by your label, which I think is great because this is a very good album, and it's so cool that fans can go to your shows and get fresh copies of this CD. But the album artwork here is really striking. It's very patriotic. It's got the bald eagle, the American flag, just terrific. And I wonder if you have any memories of like how that artwork got put together. Was that like a priority for Gary and you? Did you guys want like it to be a patriotic theme, or how did that come about?
Well, Only the Strong Survive kind of says it all, because I mean, basically we all have been through our stuff, and this country is going through some bad stuff right now. So the American Eagle, is obviously, and then you got Harley Davidson on there too, So I mean, you got a motorcycle on that. So how do I mean, again, like being from Milwaukee, I mean, that's like, it's pretty cool. So we actually had an artist paint that back in the early 90s, right before the album was out, and then they, I don't know what they did on it to make it on an album cover. They did whatever they did back then, but Ann Coiler, who's with me, does all my marketing and stuff like that. When we remastered that and we redid that, she did all the new artwork on it and made it all much clearer, and then changed the jackets on the inside because the pictures and stuff were they needed to be updated. So we redid everything on that album. Not the music wise, but the actual artwork and the jackets and stuff, because we just needed to make it clearer. Because obviously nowadays we have so much better technology, and we still want it out on vinyl, and now it's capable of putting it on vinyl too. So, and that's just one of those things that hopefully we'll be able to do. And with LA Is Mine also, we can do that on vinyl too. So that's one of the next things in the works, along with the dates we're trying to get together to do. So,
that's cool. You're trying to get, hopefully both of these might be available on vinyl in the coming years.
So everybody's requesting it, and we wanted to do it where it's set up to do it, because you have it on a digital master, but then the way they put it on an album is a little different. So it's all set to do both ways. So, I mean, again, like I said, I can't wait, because, all the pictures on the insides of both of them are really cool. I mean, we had incredible artwork on both the albums. So, and it's great. It all worked out. I'm very happy with it. The remastered one and then the new one.
Yep. And the new one also has some really good artwork I'll show here. This is, I feel this is also sort of that same kind of vibe as the Heard It on the Radio video, where, Polaroids have kind of gone the way of a radio, right? Exactly. So you're catching that.
All in LA. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
LA Was Mine, that was a song that was originally written by Gary, right? Lyrics-wise?
Correct.
And then... Is it about going out to LA from the Midwest and being, a touring or a young starving artist out there?
Pretty much, yes. And he was starving and he wasn't getting any money, so he got on a plane and went out there and tried to find what was going on. So he flew out to LA, and he, in my understanding, what he said when he was coming into Los Angeles, all you can do is see the lights, and you just fly in and you see the mountains, and then you see everything else, and the city's huge, and that's why LA, I loved you from the moment I saw you, and then he put the reference of LA being a city, but it's also a girl, and the way he danced. If you listen to the lyrics, you'll hear all that in there. So it's like it's really cool. It's Gary. He was very, very. He was a genius in stuff he did. It was like, but he never finished that song. It was always demo. So he really wanted me to finish it, and we were trying to finish it, and it never got done. So I decided to finish it for him. So that's what I did. And, you know, like I said, again, it's a wonderful song, and it's kind of, he always felt it would be more like an anthem song for, you know, like Riding Storm Out kind of was, because he just wails at the end of it. I mean, we had to cut off the end of it because it just kept going on and on and on and on and on and on. And on. It's like, Gary, just, okay, Gary, you can stop now. It's like, you know, it's like Golden Country, you know, like sometimes Dennis, you know, he does what Gary does. They just keep going on and on and on, you know, and it's great, you know, and I, you know, we don't have a set thing. We do everything kind of the way Gary did it. We just kind of go with it. Like Golden Country, you know, and there's, you know, there's some bands that are all really, really scripted, and we're not. We just play it as we go. Like, I'll change the set around whenever I have to, you know. And I can tell, like, you know, because, you know, a lot of people people that didn't know we're there, and we do REO, all of a sudden you get a lot of the older people like, oh my God, you play this song, you play that song. So then we start pulling out songs from that nobody's played in years, you know. Like I said, the Summer Love and those songs, it's just like, you know, that's in the middle of that song, you can hear Gary's influences, like with Dickie Betts, you know, and he's, you know, he was the Dickie Betts kind of guy. He loved that guy's playing, you know, and you know, there's so many people, you know, from Jeff Beck to everybody, and it's like all those songs kind of highlighted, but you don't do it unless you let it go. Just let it play, you know. And then sometimes the song will last for, you know, 7 to 10 minutes, and we go, oh, we're running out of time here. If we do like an opening slot from somebody, we got to cut it off, you know. So, but right. Yeah, the sets are always free game, and the road crew hates it, the band hates it, but I kind of figure out the audience. I've been doing it long enough. I can say, okay, guys, we got to cut this one, move this one here, move it here, move it here. So it all depends on what the audience wants, because it's all about the audience, you know.
Now, see, that's terrific. I'm really happy to hear that, because I will say, you know, seeing your show, it was so cool to hear those deeper cuts with more faithful renditions, like songs like Golden Country and like you said earlier, Summer Nights. I mean, those are, you know, if you're an REO Speedwagon fan and you've only seen REO, those are lost gems, because they don't bust those songs out. And not to knock REO, but I've seen them many times, and they have one of the most stagnant set lists in, you know, of any touring band I've ever seen. So, you know, you coming with this different approach of being a little more fluid and reading the room a little bit, you know, I really like to hear that, and this is why I really recommend, you know, fans check out the show you guys are doing.
Well, thank you. Like I said, it's been wonderful to be able to have that opportunity, because I mean, I run into Gary Richrath fans everywhere I go that are so diehard Richrath / REO's fans instead of the other way around, you know, because everybody loves Gary, and it was like, that's what's happening. I mean, even if you look on social media right now, there are so many Gary Richrath sites, it's ridiculous. It's like, and it's wonderful because we're all kind of combining together, which is helping us out, you know. And it's like I said, once you hang out with the guy, you know what it would be like. He lived it. He breathed it, and that was all that he cared about. He never cared about anything else. It was just music, and that's how he was, you know, since he was little, you know. And, you know, since his Uncle Leroy taught him how to play the first chords for Summer Love, you know, and that was one of his first songs he ever, you know, put together, wrote. So that's another reason why I love doing it for people, you know, because they like it. It's fun.
Well, yeah, and it's a venue for your creative outlet as well. You know, the one thing I was going to say about LA is Mine is, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the lyrics of that song apply to your story as well. You went out to LA, you were part of that Sunset Strip, you know, so that song must carry meaning for you.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's what that was what's so nice about Gary when he did that. He said, I want you to finish it. So I finished like the second verse of that song. And then, like, the other thing, you know, because he gave me the first verse. Just like Outlaws. I don't know if you heard us do Outlaws.
Yeah.
Okay, Outlaws is not, yeah, that's another longer song, and that was featured on the Only the Strong Survive album. But it was so long, and that song, it literally was like 3:00 in the morning, and I got a phone call. Get over here now! I got a song, so I had to get out of bed, go over to his house, and he's got the first half of the song. He goes, this is going to be me with my old group of outlaws, REO Speedwagon, taking on the world, and then I'm leaving them, and then you're gonna write the second verse, and you're gonna be the new gang of outlaws, and that's the whole thing. So if you listen to the lyrics, that's what it's all about. And then it was like, he wrote that on a grand piano, originally. So he didn't even write that on his guitar, and then he turned around and we had somebody else play the piano for it, and then I think Neil Dowdy actually did some demo work with us on that song originally. So in the studio actually, but it meant a lot to him, and then he gave me the opportunity to finish the song, and so that's what we did, and it was always like he always was doing that stuff. That's why I never understood why there was so much animosity, but there was a lot of animosity with those guys, and I know.
Is that a snapshot into Gary's songwriting process, that he would have an idea and a set of lyrics, but also some like intentionally left gaps so he could bring you in to put your own creative input in it as well? Was that fairly common through that first album?
Oh yeah, it was definitely just like Hollywood, I mean, Hollywood is another one, and it's okay. It's a play on the words. It's Hollywood, and it's like Hollywood, and it's about a girl, but it's actually Hollywood. It sounds like it's a little different.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, it's all about LA basically, and it's like, and I finished that song for him too. That was another way, and I don't know what he did previous to that. I don't know if he did that same way writing with other people, but he did it with me. And I was very thankful for it because it gave me an opportunity to learn, I never, I was a bass player before, and I played a lot of Rush and Yes and stuff like that. That's what I was into when I was growing up. And then when I always was an REO fan, but I never thought that I would be doing that. And as soon as he heard my voice, he said, "You're putting that bass down and you're going to learn guitar." And I said, "Oh, I don't know if I can do that." He made me, and he's like sat there and he taught me, "This is what you do. This is what you do. This is what you do." And so he like basically instilled it in me. So, I mean, how could I say no? I mean, everywhere I looked, there was a gold and platinum record in the studio, so I had to listen to him. So.
Well, that's so interesting to hear about the songwriting process, because you hear about so many big bands like the Eagles or the Rolling Stones, where the songwriting was, these individual members hiding off in corners, basically in this culture of fear, terrified to show each other any potential vulnerabilities. So it's so refreshing to hear that, like, other, classic rock stars, someone like Gary was a more collaborative person and really wanted to bring out everybody's best.
Right. I think so. I mean, I think that's because I know, like I was telling you before about like the Lakers, right? And it's like how he was a big sports fan. He was a team player, and that's what happened. When he felt like he was losing his team is when he felt like then he was losing everything. And like I said, he was with that band for 18 years, and he's the reason why they got the record deal, and he's the reason why they got the longevity of the hits. He helped produce You Get What You Play For, which is still one of my favorite albums. And again, it's like, so that's where it all came from. Now whatever happened after that, that's when the commercialism. And I'm not putting that down, because like I said, I enjoy doing some of those songs that Kevin wrote,
Oh yeah.
But I'm just saying, I don't understand, if he was such a team player, because he was with us, and he was always that way, But it just somewhere it got lost with him and the other band, and then with me, like I said again, we just couldn't. I don't know what we could do anymore. It was getting tough, and we all had personal problems going on at the time, so we had to kind of just like go our separate ways. But then we got back together, Gary and I, to try to finish off some things, and it still didn't work, But I mean, that was later on, like in the 2000s, and then like I said again, he kept going down and down and down. But whatever. I choose to remember him as the Gary Richrath that I played with and I had a great time with, and that's all I really want to remember him as, and the stuff he taught me. And like I said, I want this album to go huge for him, just as much as it is for us. I mean, it gives us a stepping stone to continue to do it. Like I said, I have more stuff we can put out, and I plan on it, and I plan on, every time I play a song or record a song, I know everyone's going to say, "It sounds like somebody else I know." And it's like, yeah, it sounds like an REO Speedwagon album, and that's what happens. Just you get it in you. I'm sure all those guys do that. They get certain influences and they can't stop it.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and I gotta say, like, I think, just a fan of classic rock music, a fan of just underdog and underappreciated figures in that genre. I think what you're doing with your band is just a fantastic celebration of a guy who doesn't get enough, credit for what he did, while at the same time, just being, separate from that celebration, just a damn good live rock and roll show. Like, if you weren't a talented songwriter and vocalist and you didn't have a good band behind you, well, the tribute wouldn't be worth a whole lot. It's through your talents that make it a really good time.
Right. And and like I said, and thank you, I appreciate the compliment. And to go to saying, like, all the other guys in the band, they do love playing this stuff so much, but then like I said, they are also the ones that want to put new music out there too. But it's like, like I said, we have so much a catalog. We could go out and do our own, just all of our own music, But it's like, but it's like, like I said, in this day and age, you just can't do that. But it's always about somebody else. Like, every band they listen to somebody, they're influenced by somebody. So, like, when we do those, and I'm free to do whatever I want. Like, when I'm picking the songs, we usually have a set list, but I change it. But I mean, that set list could go where we play, a half hour to 40 minutes of originals if we wanted to, because we're playing 2 hours,
Yeah.
And sometimes it even goes longer than 2 hours, but it's, like you were saying before, when you go see REO, it's a lot smaller set, and it's a lot more shut, closed down and stuff like that, where we can just go whenever, as long as we want to. And usually we end up doing that because we usually get cut off because it's time to, shut the fair down. Okay, it's time to go. We're going to get in trouble, and it's like, people are just going nuts, and we have to continue to keep playing. So
yeah.
But and it's one thing I learned, again, from Gary. He always told me, every time you get done playing, you go out and meet everybody that wants to meet you. You sign every autograph. You sign everybody's T-shirt. You do, because then that makes the fans, and that's what happens. And we set up a table. You saw it. And we're out there just taking care of business, and that's about meeting every single fan that you have to meet. And again, it's what it's all about. And those people remember that,
Absolutely they do. And they should, because that is that extra effort that a lot of bands, don't want to do. And I wanted to ask you about this aspect of it, is that, putting a new CD out in today's day and age is risky, and it's hard. It's hard to get airplay, but you're getting airplay. It's hard to get people to buy it, especially with, this post-pandemic economy we're all kind of dealing with. I had Kofi Baker from the Music of Cream was a previous guest on this show, and he told me that touring for his outfit right now is really bad. He said that his shows are getting canceled. They're having a hard time selling tickets. They're having a hard time getting people to go to shows, and it sounds like, to me, that you guys are succeeding in bringing people to see you. You guys are selling both, not just the new CD, but the reissue of this one too,
right.
And it has to, be a result of, that extra effort and that really robust show that you guys do when you do play. But so my question is, despite, the real positive feedback you've had about the albums and your shows, since COVID has happened, are you still seeing some of those same challenges that other comparable acts to yourself are as well?
Yes, I think so. I mean, like I said, through last year, we had several cancellations. This year, we only had, I think there were two of them, and it was because of the COVID in that area. They were kind of afraid that if they put the show on, then it was a challenge. And then it's like, and then if you go and do a show and there's nobody that shows up for some reason, whatever that reason is, it doesn't matter if it's COVID, or if it doesn't matter if they're just having a bad day, then it makes everybody bad. I mean, because you're
right.
bad, the promoter's bad, the club owner's bad, whatever it is. There's always, so it's better just to walk away from it, reschedule it, and hopefully that doesn't happen anymore. So our touring thing went from, before COVID, we probably did 65, 70 dates, down to this year we're up in sales, like you said, but we're probably around 50 shows. So I mean, like I said, but they're all bigger shows, so it helps. But now next year we're already getting booked for next year, which is really good. Which I think is most of it's going to be gone, hopefully. But again, like what you were saying earlier about the releasing a CD now compared to where it was back even in the 90s.
Yeah,
it's so different. It's just a whole different ball game. I mean, it's like I talk to my record company all the time, and with the way they do everything, it's just so different than it used to be, and it's so hard, because you get paid nothing for
right.
For doing it. And like I said, I don't even know what our thing was. We're into thousands and thousands of spins everywhere, but it's like and I've been real fortunate because of the songs, everything's pretty much done in my name, and this record company works wonderful, Dark Star. They're wonderful to work with. But it's like some artists, sign away their entire lives for this stuff and they don't get anything. It's like you can put out an album, but it's like you can do it yourself, but who's going to listen to it,
Yeah.
And that's why I have to thank REO Speedwagon, because like I said, that connection helps me play in the shows that people they know of REO Speedwagon, where they wouldn't know who Project 313 or Richrath is, even if you just throw Richrath out there. But if you at the story of Gary Richrath, then I'll say, oh yeah, I get it now. You have to go through that whole thing. So it works both ways. So I am thankful that I have the connection, and it works well, and I do a pretty damn good job playing the REO Speedwagon stuff like they did in the 70s, and nothing is tracked. Nothing is, we do all real rock and roll music. So everything is what you hear is what you get. And that was something that Gary always wanted me to do, don't ever do any of that stuff because it sucks, but it does. And it's like, so I keep that going, and I think it's taken longer, but it'll pay off. I think it will pay off because there's not many bands that do what we do. There's very few, because it's hard to do it, especially when you're getting older, and we're all getting older,
Yeah.
Singing 2 hours a night, that's not easy. It was easy when it was in my 20s and 30s, but it isn't easy anymore. It's like
that.
It's tough, and like I said, so you learn how to keep yourself going. Like I said, you have to keep yourself in shape. You have to keep yourself away from the stuff that hurt people. And that's one of the things that the band I'm with now, we're all real, clean and sober, and we don't, do any of the bad stuff anymore. But when we were kids, we had fun. I'll tell you that. We had a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, out on the Sunset Strip, I imagine.
Yeah.
Were you seeing groups like Poison and Guns N' Roses and those kind of? But yeah, they were all doing that stuff too, right? I mean, that was the whole lifestyle.
Yeah, we used to play, like I said, Gazzari's is no longer there, but we played Gazzari's a lot. And the Roxy, and the Whiskey, and the Troubadour. And we used to play the Country Club in Reseda, which was it's a bigger place there that a lot of bands played at. A lot of bands recorded there. And I mean, everybody played there in the 80s, John, with the hair bands, So, I mean, yeah, we played with a lot of those bands. We did a lot of stuff with those. That's how everybody dressed, and it's like, it's kind of scary now, but yeah, we went through all that stuff and just had a lot of fun. And I don't regret it, but I could never do it again, So
no, certainly that.
But no, now you got the mortgages and the kids going to school and all that other stuff. So it's life changes, but it's still a lot of fun to do what you saw us do the other night. That was a lot of fun. So I appreciate it much too. So thank you very much for the review you gave us. It was awesome.
Oh, you bet. Well, that fun is a two-way street, my man. That was a really enjoyable night. You did mention you have other songs that you could put out. I mean, do you have plans for future Richrath Project 313 albums? And is anything in the works right now?
Yeah, I mean, actually, we've already started working on some new songs, and I have in my studio that I'm in right now, I have many demos that we have through the years that I can put together now that I have a genius engineer that can help me figure it out, and I'm sure there's going to be more coming in the future. This first one that we just did is still so fresh, and with the lack of touring, which we are touring more now, we'll probably start working on it ASAP, probably at the end of this leg of the tour, because we're going to be probably finished up in December, So everybody wants to record. Like, everybody wants to play original stuff nonstop, which is great. You know, we're not a cover band, but we play a lot of REO. So, and that's because I play with Gary. So that's basically, it's kind of the same, but it isn't. You know, we record Riding the Storm Out and Son of a Poor Man on LA Is Mine too. So that turned out really good. That's more of a more rocker version if you listen to it, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear that, because I have to feel that's a little more in line with Gary's original vision of those songs. Exactly.
And that's exactly what it was. I mean, when Gary did Riding the Storm Out, that's the way that more of a rocker song where it's just, you know, blaring guitars and me singing. And then if you listen to Son of a Poor Man, he really did it more as an acoustically version of it when he first started it. And we used to go around, you know, now they have the podcast, but, you know, we used to do in-station radio stuff all the time. And every radio station we would bring a couple acoustic guitars and we would do Son of a Poor Man and Today. Today is off of the only.
Oh, okay.
And so we do Son of a Poor Man and Today. And he loved doing it acoustically. And then he wanted to do it more that way. And I actually recorded an acoustic version with him live. It's out there somewhere, but we decided to put it together as a rocking version on the album, our album, you know. So if you listen to it, it's pretty much the way he originally wanted it. So
very good.
Buy the album.
Yes, a hearty endorsement from me on that. I have both of the albums that you have available at your shows right now, and I really enjoy both. You know, the one thing I didn't get a chance to mention is, you know, Only the Strong Survive is one of my absolute favorite tunes that Gary wrote, and seeing you guys play that live was just so cool. I'm glad you're doing that stuff. I'm glad you're bringing his music more to the forefront, because I feel with, you know, his old band, you know, they don't really do that. And I just think the whole thing is a phenomenal tribute and celebration, you know, of your friend. And it is that because you've put together a great band and you deliver just a kick-ass performance. And I can't wait to see you guys again. So,
well, thank you.
And thanks again for coming on the podcast and talking.
Yeah. I'll do it anytime. Anytime I'm around, you give me a call. I'll be more than happy to do it. It's great.
You know, meeting you at the show and talking to you again today, it's just been fantastic. I really appreciate this.
I appreciate it. And remember, richrathrocks.com.
Project313rocks.com. The new album is called LA Is Mine, Richrath Project 2013. Richrath Project 313, and my guest,
awesome Michael Jahnz. Thank you again, dude. This was awesome.
Thank you very much, Joe. Keep rocking.
And that was my conversation with Michael Jahnz, the founder, vocalist, and frontman of Richrath Project 313, which is a celebration of the life and music of Gary Richrath, who wrote so many of those classic hits from REO Speedwagon back in the 70s and early 80s. I need to thank Michael for being such a fantastic guest. This was a really enjoyable conversation, and it was so great to meet him after the show I saw them do just recently as well. If Richrath Project comes to your town, go see them. They are a really good live band, and again, they'll be happy to meet with you after the show, take their picture with you, sign whatever merch you buy. It's a really good time. So thank you again to Michael for coming on the show, and be sure to check out the band's tour dates on their website, project313rocks.com. Also, you can find them on Facebook and Twitter at Project313rocks. Thanks again for listening. We'll play us out with a song from the band's new album, LA Is Mine. This is a single called Heard It on the Radio.
Hey baby, you know it's where I wanna be. Late night, we go out dancing to the songs for you and me.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember the big 4 things you can do to support this show that don't cost a dime. Number 1, listen to the show. If you're hearing this now, that means you did this part already. Thank you. There is an infinite amount of content out there, so you choosing to spend some time listening to this show means a great deal to me. Number 2, if you like what we did here, please recommend this show to family, friends, or anyone you know who's looking for a podcast, particularly about music. share our links in Facebook groups, subreddits, and recommendation threads. Whatever you can do is highly appreciated on my end. Number 3, find us on social media. Follow us on Twitter at PlayThatPodcast. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/playthatpodcast. And subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/playthatrockandroll. Lots of great material like photos and vlogs on all 3 platforms, as Play That Rock and Roll is very much meant to be a content hub as well as a podcast. And finally, the big ask. Number 4, please give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. I know this part is a hassle, but it really does help the show a great deal. Not just because it affects the algorithm, but also because it gives me something I can point to when pitching this show to potential guests. The more social media followers and positive ratings the show has, the better chance I have for booking high-profile guests for interviews. So if you take a moment to give us even just a 5-star rating, you are actively giving us a tool to do bigger and better things here. But whatever the case, I appreciate any and all efforts you take to support us here at Play That Rock and Roll. Be sure to join us next time for more great stories and music from the world of classic rock.